Why should you listen to me? Because I'm the only person in the marketplace who told at the exact bottom for Solana memes that Solana will be doing nice and the meme coins will be reversing. I told you this 3 days ago, this week actually, and I do think that we should start seeing some bullish momentum, bullish continuation on Solana. That's why I'm actually positioning certain coins in my portfolio, certain things. I am positioning in Solana meme coins. I was positioning Solana meme coins, and a range of Solana meme coins are up 2x, 3x, 70% from the bottoms, from me recording this video and saying this on video 3 days ago. Worst thing that might happen to you in this market is buying into the asset that goes to zero. We are at the edge of the giant liquidity inflow, and there is a range of shiny objects on this market that force you to buy into them just to go to zero. However, buying into most performing assets in the market that will survive, that you will be able to hold, is how you capitalize heavily and actually outperform during this cycle. Today, we will talk about 15 picks on Solana, on the chain that is the most performing chain of this cycle, to actually outperform. I will provide you with picks that I think have a chance of survival that you can actually hold. I will provide you with entry points and secret private alpha that you won't be able to find anywhere. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. There is no content like this you can actually see anywhere in the marketplace currently. And let's actually start. The only one overview, the full overview that you only need in order to outperform and get a safe leverage play on the ecosystem that outperforms the market. Without further ado, let's actually start. The first one is WIF. And I do have the amount of capital that you should be entering with into these coins. WIF, for example, is from $200,000 to 1 million. I don't think that if you want to be entering with lower amount of funds, it actually makes sense at this stage. 0 cents. If you want to enter with lower amount of funds, enter something else or play with leverage. Leverage loan, this thing you can play with conservative leverage. We are very, very close to the bottoms. We're only 50% up from the exact bottoms for WIF, which might actually be nice, a very, very nice entry point for this token. WIF is considered a largest beta Solana play on the marketplace. Unfortunately, talking about the Sol WIF chart, I was doing some drawings here already. We see that we are in a downtrend in comparison of WIF to Solana, which means that through all this time, essentially from this high, even from this high, WIF is underperforming Solana. We can even check out by how much. WIF is underperforming Solana by 60%, which means that if you were holding Solana or WIF here, if you were holding Solana, you are 60% up, not above WIF, but above outperformance of WIF above Solana, which means that overall WIF went down and Sol went up or just went down less. But historically, looking at this chart, this is the exact zone to actually be swapping some of your WIF. But historically, this is actually the time to swap some of your Solana into WIF, to swap the asset that essentially have lower risk into the asset that have higher risk, because this chart should be turning back up. We might spend some time in sideways consolidation. Eventually, WIF should start outperforming Solana, and this will be happening when the market will become risk on one more time. And I do think it will be happening quite soon as well. This is what I see for this chart. I definitely see that WIF should start to outperform Solana. We might have some risks in comparison with the fact that maybe some WIF whales actually exited, maybe they sold, maybe they don't talk about WIF a lot anymore. But anyway, it should get adopted by the market as the largest Solana beta play, appealing for normies as well. Moving further, one of the first meme coins appearing on Solana, along with Popcat. Popcat currently is at 600 million market cap. Just yesterday we had news about Popcat listing on Binance Perpetuals. At the same time, used car that appeared on the marketplace around the same time is at 0. This is something you should be afraid in the market. This is how you underperform. This is how this market steals your liquidity from you, which is the worst thing out there. Because if you would just buy into altcoin, it will just survive instead of playing with memes that just steal your liquidity. You are outperforming heavily already. This is a very risky game. You need to focus on the memes that have a chance of survival. Today, we will go through the list of such memes. I will give you each and every one of them with the reasoning behind them, and I will even share my thoughts on some that I think will have a chance of actually not surviving moving further. I do believe that a range of memes that I will be sharing currently will be way higher in 1 month from now. We have Popcat. Popcat is something that got Binance Perpetuals listings just yesterday. And some people are saying that essentially it's quite bearish, that we got news like this yesterday, right? And we're only up 40%, so not like for a lot. And I do believe that the current pump on Memecoins is pushed by Binance listing perpetuals for Popcat. You might actually see the interesting situation right here, that we might actually be printing hand and shoulders pattern, which should move us way lower. I don't believe that this is something that's happening, and to be honest, I'm expecting a breakout here. At the same time, what I do want to see for a more healthier chart is a bit of consolidation, right? However, I do believe that the market should be reversing quite soon, and this behavior from Memecoin people definitely shows it as well, because you have to understand, people that are in Memecoins, they are the best market participants at this stage. Best traders, people with largest amount of experience, they are in Memecoins at this stage. And we see a global reversal in a range of Memecoins on the marketplace currently. They are getting bought up from the bottoms. Maybe it will be just another piece of the puzzle in this range, such as this one, right? But I do believe we're due to the breakout. Again, I would suggest to be entering this meme token only with from $200,000 to 1 million on spot. If you would want to do that, only then you would actually be able to receive some gains. If you don't have this amount of liquidity, enter on leverage or pick something else. I do know that it might be not natural to enter these meme coins with these sums at this stage, but this what people that are actually capitalizing on this market are doing right now. These are the people that were entering with the same sizes in PEP as well. You have to understand, meme coins are new altcoins. The picks that I'm providing you here, I'm specifically focusing on long-term picks, and I'm specifically sharing all the risks that I see. Popcat is quite alive. It is cat meta, and GCR, a crypto trader who made $1 billion in the last cycle in the depths of the bear market of 2022. He was sharing that cats should catch up to dogs in the market cap of meme coins. And Popcat, as a cat meme coin, still has a large catch up to do to things like Doge, Shiba. Popcat is essentially, I do believe, top 2 meme coin, cat meme coin at this stage. We do also have Mock, which is around the same market cap, and they often switch each other as well. Moving further, we do have Giga. We essentially go down into the category. This is something that soon might be a blue chip, but I honestly, when checking out this chart, I honestly see a lot of risk points and issues with Giga. First thing you have to understand with Giga is that liquidity on this thing is only $2.5 million and the market cap is $174 million, which is not the ideal ratio. Essentially something similar that we had on Bread. And the thing with this type of ratio is that small amount of liquidity are actually able to move the chart upwards and downwards as well. Why project founders are actually performing this type of ratio? The response to this is because they are sniping the supply. It's called bundled. So they essentially sniped a bunch of supply at the bottoms, right? And we can definitely see it in the distribution, 0.41, 0.43. So when you essentially see a bunch of wallets with the percentages that only differ by 1, right? It usually means that the whole thing is just sniped. Partially, it's great because there might not be a lot of sell pressure, and essentially no one from default market participants actually have a large chunk of supply in this token, right? Because you can just not buy a lot, right? At the same time, you have to hope that the team is not there to actually dump on you, to rug you. You have to hope, you have to believe that the team is not going to sell on you, but they're going to sell on tourists, on retail that will be coming back at the top of the cycle, right? And what are they doing with the funds that they essentially have, with all the wallets? They are selling on the pumps to get some money for marketing activities. I do believe they were selling right here 100%. They were selling from the wallets that they sniped, maybe here and maybe here, but this one looks just like a default correction. Right here I'm not sure, just because of the fact that this correction is heavily connected with the situation that was happening in the market. This one might be as well, but you have to understand what is happening. The tokens are being sold from this sniped wallet to pay for QLs, to pay for marketing, and when you hear a lot of people screaming about the token right here, maybe right here, and at the same time the token price is not moving up, and you see that a bunch of KOLs, like large people, are speaking about this. The main issue is that the team is essentially selling the token, farming on the project from the wallets that they sniped. In some cases, if the team is rich and they have a vision to dump not on you but on retail, it's great. In some cases, in most cases, you will still have them taking some profits for themselves. Situation that happened on Bread with some people taking more than 5,000 Ethereum when essentially everyone was speaking about the token, but it was not going up because it was farmed. I have 10 to 25x here if survive. And risks that I see for Giga here is that I don't see consolidation happening. And we kind of are printing head and shoulders here as well. We might have this small pump right here and just go back. We definitely do have the support zone, which is like a low one, $40 million, right? And you might say that this one. And essentially this area is your buying zone. If you would want to get into this token, this is your buying zone. And what's very, very important in the tokens that are bundled, in situations where the ratio of liquidity and market cap is like this, the main thing with them is that your entry point, the point where you enter, is way more important than in other tokens. Just because of the fact that low amount of liquidity can actually push this thing either up or down, very, very heavy, right? You can see the top 10 holders, even one of them, they can just dump the whole chart to zero. They have almost the amount of liquidity that the whole token, that the whole project actually have. So you should be careful about this thing. So if you would want to enter these things, you want to find an entry that is nice at the bottoms. Like this week was essentially a nice entry from this run up, right? It did like a 6x. And I won't be entering currently. Personally, myself, I would consider an entry at the bottoms of this range. That's the overview for me on Giga. Mumu, very, very similar situation as well. Bundle supply, the dev was also farming. You can see it essentially in the distribution overview. And I was sharing some things on here as well. You can see that the liquidity is similar, is exactly the same to Giga. It's also $2.5 million, right? And we can see that we had this long consolidation, right? But the reason I have these circles right here is because I do believe that Dev was actually selling heavily right here, right? And eventually he decided to use the funds to pump the whole thing higher. So as a holder of this thing, you might think that it's actually evil to be selling here, but these funds were probably used to push this thing higher. So if you were able to hold, you essentially capitalized heavily on this thing. I have this range here for a reason, because we had 2 weeks into this range, right? And we kind of had a week further right here as well. I do believe it's a very, very nice entry zone at this stage into this meme token, between $73 million market cap and $83 million market cap. We might be there, depends on the market at this stage. We see a 12% reaction in the last 1 day from Momo, and we see a reaction of 40% from the lows, which is not that bad for this token, right? And it definitely has a very, very nice narrative. So you can say that we are at the edge of the breakout and we would want to consolidate to confirm this breakout. However, if we go back to this range, it would be a nice entry point. Again, the tokens that I'm showing currently, they are the tokens that I would suggest to only enter with from $50,000 to the $100,000. I don't think that it would make sense to enter with the lower amount of money, because you will be able to capitalize heavier in other things. I'm not sure if Momo is available on perpetuals at this stage. If you don't have this amount of money, you can try perpetuals as well, if you know what you're doing. Next thing is Billy. Billy is something that was flooded heavily. At the same time, this token was pumping into the months of July when we had multiple drops, and it was honestly very interesting to see this thing pumping along with Giga. However, in comparison to Giga, this thing actually consolidated and corrected heavily. This is something I honestly like because this just feels like a more natural price movement for the token. At the same time, you have to understand that these movements, default market participants, they cannot actually create these movements. These movements are created by whales selling the tokens into the chart. And when whales are doing that, you honestly should be careful about the things that are happening. You honestly should think why things like these are happening. Do they actually plan to support the project moving further? I do also have some drawings here right now. We see a reaction from the bottom in the current market setup of 66% from the exact bottom, which is honestly quite nice. We do see kind of a similar situation as on other memes that I was just sharing, that we kind of broke through this corrective structure and we need to consolidate above this trend line in order to be able to confirm that we are eventually breaking out, right? We might be seeing some more consolidation for this thing, and it honestly would be healthy. I love to see consolidations as they actually allow for the assets to move higher right after, right? At the same time, you have to be careful with this thing. Interesting note is that liquidity on this thing is 2.1 million. Liquidity is exactly almost the same as Momo and Giga. A very, very interesting situation out there that you should definitely focus on as well. About this thing, I would say that it's harder to say if it actually will survive. The entry zones that you might want to have, we are actually at the bottoms of the range currently. So right now is a very, very nice entry zone. If you would want to wait for a confirmation and essentially be able to enter when the things are safer, you might want to wait till $65 million market cap, but your upside will already be limited at that stage. Right now, we are at the nice entry point. At the bottoms, we were even at the better entry point, but it definitely comes with risk. You have way less confidence that this thing will actually survive and will continue, because once in a month, once in 2 months, we are getting a runner like this, and over time, some of them, unfortunately, they just tend to go down. Nothing tend to actually happen with them. So we will essentially see what will be happening with Billy. Definitely a riskier pick. That's why I have this as yellow. But I do think it's also a 50 to 200k pick. And I don't think it's on perpetuals at this stage, right? At the same time, you might say that we got quite a nice reaction from the bottoms with the reversal of Solana memes. And this is something that you definitely want to see. This is a healthy behavior for the tokens, right? And bottom buyers, they're already almost at 2x with size. Moving further, I have Michi. Michi is a cat meme coin, which is kind of like a cult, right? And I honestly feel safer about this meme, just for the reason that it has this cult-like community. I don't believe it's bundled initially as well, although we definitely do see some percentages that are quite similar to each other, but if you check them, you can actually see like real buys and sells, which means that most likely like a lot of them are real people. At the same time, yeah, like the percentages are quite interesting here as well. And we have this range. What you can say about this range is it might actually look just like a giant consolidation. We were at the top of this range, we tried to break through, we rejected, we went down, we had this correction, right? And then we had these two moves as corrections to the large correction. So this correction, this move is correction to this correction, and this move is also a correction to this correction, which is a very, very healthy behavior, to be honest. And Michi is reacting nicely to the market movements. Right now, we just start the move here. What I would want to see is to see higher high and essentially higher low, because you might actually say that this one is the high low above this one, right? And what I would want to see right now is the high low. Is there enough fuel to actually go to like 230 to 150 million market cap? We will see. It will depend on the market as well. It will depend on additional liquidity coming into the market. And from the bottoms, I do believe that we've done around 35%, but this one is one of the picks as I think your essentially safe picks out there. I do think that this thing has actually a high chance of survival, which is the only thing that you actually need in this market, because we are at the edge of the giant liquidity inflows. Amount of liquidity we have in the marketplace currently is very, very low. Your goal is to buy into meme coins that will survive over time. If you want to play short-term metas, do that. Your goal is to just position yourself into the memes that will survive over time. And this thing, I would say, is kind of proving it, because it appeared in April. It's doing quite all right in comparison to the market behavior right now as well. And there are a lot of holders in the community as well. Last but not least, from 50 to 200k buys is Retardio. Retardio is essentially like a culture coin, cult coin of crypto Twitter, and essentially connected to NFT collection as well. A bunch of people who are trading meme coins, they have Retardio as their profile picture, right? I was doing some essentially drawings here as well. First of all, what we can see here is we can see these three tops. We can see this giant consolidation range, right here. And we had a break through this range. We broke through, we showed a nice amount of access, and we are correcting since then. What I would probably want to see is a correction, like a correction to this correction. So we might be just at the start of the correction to this downwards correction, which definitely should pump us, maybe 2.5x. But for some reason, I do not expect a continuation from there. For some reason, it seems to me that we should probably go back into this range, and after this correction to this price action, consolidate here for some time and only have breakout right after. So you might say that we are at the tops of the range on this thing currently. And for some time, like, you would probably be able to catch a bit if you're buying somewhere here, or if you can see like these weeks in the range, they're being bought like heavily, which is nice. Like, people are defending this range, but we definitely are in the downtrend on this thing. And this thing usually takes time to essentially come back and to pump. Don't get me wrong, if you are getting a crazy bull run, we saw go into $300, it will probably have lower consolidation. It will probably just pump through the amount of liquidity that essentially it will be getting from the market. However, healthy chart in default steady market condition grows, it just tells me it wants to consolidate for some time. That's why I have it in yellow. Whether or not it will survive, most likely it will. However, I'm pretty cautious. Like, that's why I also have it in yellow, because 100% I'm not sure, but it should be. Smoking chicken fish, probably the best performing token in terms of actually token being like of a large market cap since the recent lows, right? We just had Ansem recently calling this thing as well, and it's essentially surging up nicely since the bottoms. I was looking at these things at the bottoms, unfortunately I did not buy. 226%. Yeah, it's one of the best performing tokens out there. We've seen this high, we got rejected, we've seen this correction, right? And the pattern that we see here, right? We saw this drop. You have to understand that no people except whales, except early buyers, except insiders can actually cause this large of a drop on a meme token. This is very, very important, right? Then we had correction to this drop. And after that, we had this giant move, giant corrective move. So I believe what we're seeing currently is a correction to this giant move. And it kind of shows me that we probably should print another structure, another high right here. And for healthy chart, I would want it to go sideways to consolidate for some time. Maybe we'll be seeing deviations below this range. We will see what will be happening with this thing. I have it in 10 to 50k range, but the main reason for that is because I was doing this list a bit earlier when the market cap of this thing was lower, right? And right now we stand to 50k, your upside is quite limited. Conservatively, I do think we should be printing this high. So conservatively, I think you might be expecting a 2x price movement from here quite soon. I do also think that we might just revisit this level right here, right? The same way that we've done before. And if you want to catch up or get into this coin to catch the current move, this level would actually be your entry point, around $40 million market cap. Probably will be seeing continuation from here. And honestly, following the structure, I do expect a bit more of a consolidation for this token moving further. One more time, if we're entering a bull run, like a real bull run part of the cycle, right? These things, they might pump without any like longer term consolidation, right? Whether or not it will survive, hard to say. It was pushed by Raoul Pal, but it also kind of feel like a short-term cabal meta, such as Billy, for example, which we definitely don't have like 100% confidence that it will move up, moving higher. Liquidity and market cap ratio is also quite interesting in this thing. Like, and you can also kind of think that it's bundled in a way, like there are a bunch of wallets that are very, very close to each other, right? You would want to see like a larger picture by opening it in on SolScan, just checking out the holders and see a larger picture as well. This is my overview. However, 1 day, 2 days ago, it was a very, very nice. Next thing is selfie. Selfie is not bundled. The main reason, the main fact that the selfie is not bundled is because it pretty much went down to 600k market cap, like right here, right? And I do honestly like this token. This is one of my largest holdings on Solana. And survivability wise, I don't think it actually has a very, very high chance to survive. It's been supported, like the main person behind it is DGN, who is Weave Whale, who is Popcat Whale, who is SCF Whale as well. He has a very, very nice network. He owns like businesses in the US, casinos. I think he's one of the investors in Bybit, like New Ventures. And it's interesting that Bybit definitely has a focus on memes this cycle. And a lot of people are still neglecting memes as well as certain organizations in crypto. And just recently I was reading some things about the story of Binance. The way Binance was actually able to acquire market share was by listing altcoins, when essentially market was also neglecting altcoins. And Memecoins are actually new altcoins. So this is the way to acquire larger market share currently. And I think these exchanges should understand this as well. And I think this is one of the reasons of why Binance, it essentially allowed perpetuals for Bread and allowed perpetuals for Popcat, because over time they also start to realize that meme coins are new alts, and in order for them not to lose the market share, they actually need to list meme coins. They need to focus on these things as well. And over time, more and more organizations, they will essentially come to the same conclusion as well. Selfie wise, we had this breakout recently. We need to confirm it as well. I do believe right now is a nice range to buy selfie. Better range is between essentially $4 and $8 million, but we never seen that. We never seen this range yet. And if the market will be returning, we will not be seeing this range moving further as well. So right now is a very, very nice time still. I would say we are at the top of the range at this stage in order to entry into this token. I like the ticker. I like the memeability. I like the replicability that you can just put a picture of a dog on each and every photo. And this is Shiba. Shiba, essentially in crypto, is doing quite well. So this is kind of a bet on the influencer. Community is very, very nice. He's constantly pushing the community as well. I do think it's like very, very solid long-term pick, because DGN will probably be staying in the market. He's a very, very good trader himself. And what's interesting is that partially he's essentially transferring his profits into selfie, or he's attracting whales from other coins that he's getting into selfie as well, which is a very, very interesting type of setup. Like if he want to be such a good trader, it would be a bit bearish, but it's just a different way of kind of attracting liquidity into the coin, right? Very, very interesting. As long as he continues to be a nice trader, this thing will be doing well, and he's definitely a nice trader with a bunch of insights. He's active in the market. A very, very nice example, to be honest. Like a guy with a bunch of money, he's probably working harder than a bunch of trench people out there. The next thing is lock-in. Yeah, once again, these are the coins that I think you should be entering with $10,000 to $50,000. So this is a very, very interesting example. The comparison of selfie and lock-in. You always should have this speculative value of the token in your mind. And what you might say is more appealing for normies. Is it selfie or lock-in? I would say that selfie value, speculative value, is way higher than lock-in speculative value, because lock-in is something specific to crypto. It's something specific, it's something like a retarder in a way. That's why it definitely has a ceiling when we're speaking about this thing. So the good thing about this thing is that we are in this upward trend line. Once we break the trend line and go down and go sideways, and there are charts of the tokens like this, I will show you some of them today, it might be actually dead. Like it won't be too nice. Currently, we're printing corrective behavior. Maybe we'll go back into the bottom of the range. This is your buying zone. Bottom of the trend line is always your buying zone, right? Maybe we'll just correct here and go up, and we will try to break out the range, right? We will break through, we will get rejected, we will consolidate for some time below the range, we will attempt another breakthrough, and we will finally break out, right? We can also see the liquidity is 600K, market cap is $18 million, which is quite large by itself, and it also seems to be bundled. Bunch of tokens out there are bundled these days, and what you have to bet on, what you have to hope for is the dev is rich and he's not planning to dump on you, but he's planning to dump like later. This thing definitely have a ceiling, as mentioned. So if you're entering at the range lows around this trend line, you should be fine. Currently, you might enter with some just to make sure to catch the upside. If not, just wait for the if will be at the range lows. Obvious targets are a new all-time high, which is $50 million market cap, so 2-3x from here should be fine. Whether or not it should be surviving, the main question. I think it has a chance of surviving, right? But it also has a ceiling, so you should be careful with these things, I do think. But as a short-term play, I do think you should be capitalizing. Trump, something that I actually want to show you, something that I was speaking a lot of, right? Trump definitely lost its uptrend trend line, right? Ideal scenario that I would want to see is to go sideways on this trend line, and then it would be very, very bullish for this thing. This is something I honestly do expect from Lock-in to actually show, right? But this chart right here, it's essentially capitulation of larger holders, because no holders except larger holders can print something like this on the chart. And currently we are consolidating in this range. This range is a very, very nice entry point. If you believe in Politify narrative, and if you believe in the fact that this thing will essentially pump, you can be getting into it. When there was a Trump assassination attempt, this thing pumped from $30 million to $80 million, which is not that large if you would think 2.5x only, because camels currently, they tend not to buy into existing tokens. They tend to create new tokens, because it's just that the fact that the creation of new tokens is quite easy right now, right? But this is the example of a meme token, the one that I'm sharing, where the entry point is actually now. Like, you don't need to wait. You don't need to enter with like certain size, lower, higher. This is the exact entry point that you would want. If we are losing this range, this thing just goes to zero. It's a scam, it's dead, right? We might have deviations below this range, but we are at the bottom of the lower range. This is the exact entry point for this token at this stage. At the same time, you have to understand that it has $1.1 million of liquidity, which is quite nice. It's only 2 times less than things like Billy, right? Than things like Giga. It's only 2 times less. Giga is at $170 million market cap. This thing is at 13 million. So don't get fooled by the ratio of market cap and liquidity out there. This thing is larger than it seems. So yeah, I do think we are at the very, very nice entry point at this stage following this Trump meme coin. This is one of the few meme coins that have a very, very nice entry right now at the current point of time. So like for $50,000, you can actually acquire 0.4%, which is not that bad. Next thing is Brainlet. This one is quite interesting because it's being pushed by the guys from Boba community, OG Boba Snebo community. They tend to come to Solana now and launch these Souljack and all these meme coin plays, right? It also has quite a nice chart. It's quite technical. I don't like this manipulation right here, right? But what we're seeing here is that we see a series of higher highs and lower lows, and it seems like people are really working hard, like market maker, really working hard to draw this chart nicely. We have this giant triangle right here, right, that we might be breaking out. We had the attempt to break it out right here, but we get rejected, and we are back into the range. What's interesting is that it was breaking up during the time when the market for Sol memes was mainly corrective, which is very, very interesting. Right now, as you can see, we are essentially back into the triangle, and we are at the top of this range, at the top of this consolidation range. Your ideal entry point is at the lower bracket of the range and at the lower bracket of this triangle as well, right here. $13 million market cap. I do honestly like this pick just because of the fact that I know people from the community. I've been like watching after them for a long time since the bear market as well, and at least you can be sure that you probably won't get dumped on. And you can definitely see that like they're working hard on this chart. They're working hard to make it look nice. And overall, this price movement, you can say that we are just in a giant consolidation range. After this low is higher highs, higher lows, which is bullish, right? And honestly, we might not even be getting lower to the bottom of this range. We might just consolidate here, and this is something that we are doing. So the market is defending this level, this range, and trying to use it as support at this stage. And if we would stay here, we will probably just bounce back, and we'll probably just push out of the triangle without the rejection right here, right now. But ideal scenario for me, I would probably only consider entering right here, because this was your entry point number 1, this was your entry point number 2, and we tapped the triangle as well. We tapped it, which is very, very important. And entry point number 3 might be this one, although it might be the case that triangle is a bit different. No, it's not. So yeah, so this is essentially your entry point if we touch the bottom. And in some way, if you don't want to be greedy, you might say that your entry point is currently is this one as well, right? So I do honestly like this thing, and I do think it has a nice chance of survival, although they were launching a bunch of memes before that on Sol, and I don't think that they're doing that well, right? So might be short-term meta, but they are really working hard on this chart. I do think that, yeah, it has a higher chance of survival. Next thing is fork. Again, we are in the category of 10 to 50k investments. I have some things drawn here that I was playing with, right? So you also can see a giant triangle right here. You also can see this move, this correction, and this pump is essentially a correction to this correction. These are like just easy money. You just assess the community here, you buy it here, and you're making at least like 2 to 3x, right? Then we see a correction. I do believe that the current pump that we're having is correction to this corrective move as well, and we're definitely forming a channel here. What I would want to see is us consolidating into the channel, but what you can also note is that just recently we were trying to break out through the triangle right here. We broke through, but we got heavily rejected. So the situation right here is quite similar from the chart structure wise to the situation we have on Brainlet. So we have two cases. We might go back down into the bottom of the range, bottom of the triangle, go sideways here for some time, and then eventually break out. Or we might actually try to consolidate around this range, around the top of the triangle, and break out from here. Will depend on the market structure. Ideally, I would want us to go back into this range, to go back at the lows, to tap the low of the triangle or low of this range, and this would be your entry point right here, right? However, it's a new meme. It has a nice community as well, so it might be continuing from here. Depends on the market heavily. Depends on the fact that whether or not these memes will essentially continue to pump. And a lot of them, they have very interesting patterns. A lot of them, they kind of showing that the current pump is correction to previous correction, right? And because a correction to a correction is a pump, is upside movement. And some of them are printing head and shoulders pattern, which also like bearish patterns. They kind of suggesting some things, but personally I do think that we should be seeing an explosive price movement on the market, which should essentially push these memes moving further. Next thing is Aura. Aura was pushed by a lot of influencers out there, and you can kind of say that we broke through this trend line right here. And what we see here as well, we see this wick down. The good thing about this wick down is the fact that it got defended, which means that there are definitely buyers, and this range is ideal to enter. And that's why I do believe this week was actually bought. Like the low of this range is just generational entry. Second thing that you should be careful about is that this week I definitely caused by larger holders. So this week is probably capitulation of larger holders, which means that we definitely should be careful, because maybe they will stop talking about this meme, maybe they will start supporting it, right? At the same time, we had 2x move from the lows of this week already. This range is also quite nice to enter into this thing. This is also one of the examples of tokens where your entry might actually be right now, because we had the bottoms of this range. The week got bought, so we definitely see strengths here. Maybe it will continue to go down and it will just go here, right? It will be bad for the token, to be honest. Like, it's quite bullish that this week got actually bought up. It's quite bullish right after this capitulation. Nice meme, cat coin as well in the meta. It's kind of like this buzzword like aura. He has a nice aura. The aura is crazy, things like that. So it's an interesting meme by itself. And yeah, the market participants defending this week is quite bullish. So it means that this is a huge demand zone, right? And we might continue to chop in this range and go sideways. But to be honest, it would be quite bullish. If we go sideways in this range, it would mean that we are consolidating, that we are preparing for the next pump higher. I would honestly want to see us consolidating in this range and eventually end up with a larger move up. I have it in yellow because it's a bit risky. It had a nice correction. This capitulation showed me that larger holders unfortunately capitulated. But chart-wise, yeah, I do like this thing. Last but not least is Mini. Mini is your better play to Michi in a way, right? It's also a cat coin. And it's kind of similar to Selfie chart-wise. Like, it went down heavily in this correction, right? And then it pumped, essentially along with Selfie, right? And we definitely see that we tried to break through this range a bunch of times, but we got rejected. This was probably a sell-off on the market. And what this chart is due, if you can actually look at this chart is due for a pump to correct all these downwards movement. You might say that partially like this small thing was a corrective pump to the downward movement, but it seems like should be the larger one, like 2x, right? And we are definitely like, the thing I like about this thing is that it holds this trend line. This trend line, it actually holds very, very nice. So you can see that we are kind of going sideways. This is a very, very healthy sign. And this is also one of the memes that is in the buy zone like right now. You don't have to wait. This meme is in the buy zone right now. You can check out the community. I don't believe this thing is also bundled. And they kind of following this Michi playbook with being like a cult community, with people putting the PFPs on the profile picture. So yeah, it should be a solid pick. It kind of depends on Michi, but it should be a solid pick. It's also a cat, and cats, they're still kind of overvalued in comparison to dogs like Doge and Shiba and things like that. So if we will eventually have this giant flow of liquidity distribution from one thing to another, yeah, it should be just crazy. So this is it from my end. The picks that I wanted to share today are the picks that I think have high chance of survival. And in the process, I also shared things that I think will survive or will not survive, along with analyzing of the charts, along with providing you with the entry points. And this is essentially the way to get your hand on outperformance of Solana, and potential outperformance of Solana moving further into the cycle. Because once we will be seeing Solana go into 200, 250, these memes, they should be doing quite nice. The ones that will be able to survive. Again, what you need to focus on is meme coins that will survive. That's the main thing out there. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments about this type of content. Press the like button, subscribe to this channel as well, and I will be seeing you tomorrow. You don't want to miss this alpha.